I'm here with Senator David Perdue. Senator Perdue is running for governor of Georgia right now in the Republican primary. He is challenging sitting governor Brian Kemp after Kemp's first term. Senator, thanks for being here today. I'm going to start off, I saw an interview you did in Augusta last week. I'm going to start off the same question.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, this is certainly not in my character normally. And the only reason I'm doing this is because the Republican Party is divided in the state. A lot of people feel like Governor Kemp caved in to Stacey Abrams in the consent decree and then allowed her to take control of the election in 2020. We see the results, and since then, he and the top 3 or 4 elected officials have been in denial, and we really have had no outside, really independent, objective view of what happened in 2020. So the Republican Party is split, and we need to unite that party in order to beat Stacey Abrams this fall.
And you look at the split, and there clearly is a split in the Republican Party, and you and Governor Kemp are highlighting that right now. Other than what you just said, why is the party split right now?
Well, 73%, if you believe separate polls that have looked at this, believe that significant fraud happened and that Brian Kemp was responsible and did nothing about it. Now, when you look at what's going on, people say, well, it's all been looked at, there's nothing there are no facts. Well, that's not true. There's a court case that voters brought against the Fulton County Board of Elections that the judge actually ruled that the evidence was compelling. He ruled to unseal the absentee ballots, and then later, unfortunately, ruled that voters don't have legal standing. So I've taken that case up, and we're trying to find out if a candidate has legal standing, and then if it does, then I want to find out what happened in Fulton County. Now look, we're not trying to overturn an election. Let's be clear. This is about finding out what happened and making sure it doesn't happen again.
And I want to go back to that. Do you think the results of the Georgia election, both the Senate races and the presidential race, were fair and accurate? Do you think the 2020 results and the 2021 runoff results were accurate?
Of course not. I mean, when you look at the facts that have been presented in a court of law, a civil case, the facts that were presented there would cause you to investigate. If you're a reasonably minded person, you would say, based on the facts presented in the law, in a court of law, that you would at least go investigate those, but we've had none of that done. In fact, we've had disinformation, really, from some of the officials up there. I even called for the resignation in November of last year after we saw what was happening. I asked for I joined 3 lawsuits. I asked for a special session several times to get at this so we could avoid it for the January runoff. And I even asked for the resignation of our Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. So we've been in there fighting against this all along, and this year the evidence is beginning to come out. And it's not the conspiracy theory that came out immediately after the election. These are hard, cold facts that are indisputable.
When you look at this, I mean, you and Governor Kemp agree on one thing. Neither one of you think Stacey Abrams should be the governor of Georgia. Right. I mean, that's a clear line of agreement for the two of y'all. Why are you the person best suited to beat Stacey Abrams?
Well, first of all, I agree with your premise that either Brian or I will be better for the state of Georgia than Stacey Abrams. So let's be clear about that. I'm there. If he were to win this primary, I'm going to give him my full support. But the evidence is there. In November of 2020, I beat the Democrat by 90,000 votes. People forget that. We missed just by a few thousand votes the 50% rule and got pulled into a runoff, and 800,000 people did not come back out and vote because they had lost confidence in the voting system. Now, I also got 480,000 votes more than Brian Kemp did in 2018, and the reason we were able to do that is we pulled regular Republicans, people in the suburbs, these are new people moving in, and the Trump voter. We pulled all of those together and united. 5 million people voted, more than ever in Georgia's history, and I got more Republican votes than any person in Georgia's history.
You got more than Senator Loeffler did at the time.
Correct.
When you look at that, though, you say voters in Georgia had lost confidence and didn't come back for the runoff in January of 2021.
Right.
You're being endorsed and pushed by President Trump. You played a video at an event you were at earlier today. Was President Trump part of the reason the people lost confidence in the results? And did that eventually, in your mind, cost you and Senator Loeffler those 2 elections?
Well, I would argue that by losing a race, I was the most damaged other than President Trump in the general election in November. And in January, I certainly lost a lot there in terms of not being reelected. But I don't think Donald Trump influenced people to not vote. I think what he was talking about was the impropriety that we had to get it fixed. And we were on the same page. I wasn't trying to overturn the November election. What we wanted to do was fix the two things. Really, was the only thing I was arguing about. One is the signature verification wasn't done; it was obvious. The second was that we had a law that allowed people to parachute into Georgia to claim residency and register to vote, and over 200,000 people did that. We wanted that fixed before the January election. So what happened was people saw the vagaries of the general election. They saw the delay in the results. They saw what happened in Fulton and DeKalb County, and they just genuinely lost confidence.
Quick question, and you mentioned that fact about people came into Georgia and registered between the November general and the runoff, and used a figure, I think, of 235.
That's correct.
This afternoon. Where are you getting the number from?
From the GOP and from the Secretary of State's own website.
And I checked with the Secretary of State between, and just trying to understand that, because when you said that at the Republican Women's thing today, it was the first time I'd heard that number. And they said there were only 103,000 registered total, but in that November to January period. So that, I mean, so I don't think 200, that number, the number according to the Secretary of State's office today doesn't seem right. Is that?
Well, there are so many numbers on the Secretary of State's website that are not right.
Yeah.
We have a private citizen in Houston County who spent most of the year in 2021 looking at the Secretary of State's website and found 4,200 votes that were actually duplicate. They had been counted twice at least. In addition, he found 18,000 missing batches, and this is just Fulton County. So out of 36 errors he found in Fulton County, only 2 of them amounted to 22,000 votes. So these are the types of vagaries that we want looked at. In June 9th, there were 1,000 people who voted twice. The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Governor all said, we're going to find them, we're going to prosecute them, we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again, and not one person's been investigated. So we have voting laws in Georgia, we just haven't been enforcing them. What I'm encouraged to do is when I get elected, we're going to create, if the state legislature agrees, and we'll fight hard for this, is to create an election law enforcement division inside the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to solely be responsible for enforcing voting law.
Does that become almost like an election police? I mean, that's what you're.
Of course not. When you ride up and down the street, you have people out here that ensure safety. We don't call them the speeding police. They're our safety officers, public safety officers. They want to keep us safe. So that's the way I look at it. I want the laws enforced. I want everybody to vote, because the truth is, when everybody voted in Georgia, Republicans won in my race.
But when you got to the primary, what concerns you most about the potential impact of the Kemp-Perdue primary?
Well, the thing that most concerns me is whether or not Republicans will come out and vote in May and then again in November. If they do, we can protect this state from the liberal disaster we see going on in the Biden administration today. We know what Abrams has said publicly that she wants. She wants to get rid of ICE. She wants open borders. She wants illegal immigrants to vote. She wants to defund the police. So we know that's coming if we don't get together and vote. We have to unite. Whether or not we agree on all the individual issues is secondary. The first issue is, do we want to default on the Republican side to the Democratic candidate for governor? I'm giving our people a choice, a referendum choice about who they want to stand up against her.
It's going to be an expensive primary. I mean, a really expensive primary. You got in, and your initial fundraising effort was significantly lower than Governor Kemp's. How are you going to offset the financial disadvantage you're at right now coming out of the gate?
You know, Chuck, in, let's see, it was 2014. At this point in February in 2013, my poll number was 3% with a 4% margin of error.
So you were underwater.
I was totally underwater, and I raised a lot less then than we are now. We're not going to outraise the governor. It's an incumbent governor. I'm a big boy. I know that. I knew that going in. It's just a transactional relationship between most people and the governor. So this is not going to be about money. It's really going to be about people versus politicians. Governor Kemp has been in elected office for 20 years. I think people are fed up with what's happened the last 2 years. They don't feel like he stood up and fought for them, and I'm giving them a simple choice. That's all we're doing.
You know, and it's interesting when you talk about fundraising. Columbus has traditionally been one of those communities because of our strong businesses here, the Synovus, the Aflacs, you know, the wealth that is in this community. Columbus is traditionally a place you have come, and Governor Kemp has come and asked for campaign contributions, literally the oil that fuels the engine. Is it more difficult now because you're asking people to split loyalties, particularly the business communities that maybe look at this, using your word, not mine, as transactional?
Well, Chuck, that's a very astute observation. It takes somebody that understands the nuances of campaigning in Georgia. nobody's ever run, a Republican has never run against an incumbent Republican governor before, and so this is new
Much
territory.
less a former U.S. senator.
Right, and so what we've done is, of course, we've put people in conflict, unintentionally, but we knew it was a byproduct. I'm shut out from the traditional sources of raising money in this state, the people that were always supportive of me in 14 and then again in 20. We knew that going in, and that's why we're running a campaign of the people. We saw 1,000 people in small events just like the one you just attended.
You had about 75 today.
That's correct.
Republican women.
Correct, and we'll do anywhere between 15 and 20 a week is what we're doing right now, all over the state, from Hayhire to Hiawassee. I finished Saturday night in McKaysville, drove back to the coast that Saturday night after the 7:30 event, and did a early morning hit with TV hit with Maria Bartiromo on MSNBC. So this is something that we're doing. We're not going
to TV hit on MSNBC.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not your normal network of choice.
I'm sorry, it was Fox actually.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah. Joe Kernan's on MSNBC,
Yeah,
but
okay,
that was
okay.
Fox that morning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. No.
Good catch. She would have killed me for that, by the way.
Talk a little bit about the conversations you're having with the traditional support that has been with you in the past. That's sort of saying, "Hey, how are those conversations going with people in the business communities, particularly in this community, Columbus?"
Well, the National Chamber of Commerce put millions of dollars against me in the primary against Jack Kingston back in 2014.
They did.
Yeah, the RGA, the Republican Governors Association, is putting ads up right now against us. So this is something I've gotten used to as an outsider, but I'm not worried about that. What I'm doing is speaking what people have in their minds and hearts, and I believe it's a majority of people. What concerns me is whether they will get over their concern about the voting vagaries and go out and vote, get me elected so we can finally, once and for all, get this fixed. If they do that, we'll be in good shape in November.
Do you think across the state, as we get closer to the May 24th election, that you and Governor Kemp will be side by side?
100%. 100%.
So, I mean, I know that debating was an issue in the last election, but you're going to debate Governor Kemp at a lot of turns in this thing.
Well,
right?
in my race in 2014, we did 17 debates in a primary, a runoff, and a general election. In 2020, we did 3 with the Democrat. People forget that. We did 3. In the runoff, we decided not to do it for several reasons, one of which I wanted people to see what an empty suit I was running against. Obviously, it wasn't about the candidates. It was about the concern about the election, and our people just didn't come back out and vote.
You've been at it on both sides now, as the contender trying to knock the champion off, and then as the champion. Is debating more difficult to do when you hold the seat, when you have the belt?
First of all, I don't think debates matter much anymore, except at the presidential level. I think that's all about TV, and quite frankly, some of the questions you'll see come out of there are really not appropriate for the broad issues before us here. But I don't think so. I think the issue right now is to get the truth out before the people and let them know they have a choice. The Trump endorsement is one of the things we're trying to get out there right now. You saw that video earlier. The fact of what I did after the November election to make sure that we fought against what was happening, to find out what happened. And now what we're doing is going around the state making sure people know they have a referendum choice. They don't have to default to the establishment. So as an outsider, I actually like that. I've done that my whole life. I competed against people like Levi Strauss, Nike, and a little company you might have heard of called Walmart in my business career. So, I mean, this is something
You were Reebok and Dollar General.
I was at Reebok, and we competed with Nike uphill, and we did that successfully. I was at Dollar General, and you can see the result of that. We competed very effectively against Walmart. So I'm proud of that, and it was all because of the people we had around us and because of one thing. We listened to our customers. And that's what I've been doing all of 2021. I put my life on hold to figure out what happened and to try to help make sure it never happens again.
You don't have to do this. I mean, you're a man of means. You and your wife Bonnie could be on the coast or wherever you choose to be. You are opening yourself up to public scrutiny. You're opening yourself up to attacks, and you will be throwing out some of those attacks. But you're in a fight now. You could have bypassed this fight. Why didn't you? Why didn't you sit it out?
I would tell you that I got drafted, but it was much more than that. The phone rang off the hook all year. I got frustrated because I saw a train wreck coming, and I can tell you if Republicans want a president in the White House in 24 and they want to get the Senate majority back in 22, they have to win this governor's race. And
It's that important?
It's that important. This governor's race will become a race of national importance. Just like I told people in May of last year, that Senate seat in Georgia, my Senate seat, could become the pivotal vote to determine the majority. I was right. Unfortunately, we didn't get that pulled off in the runoff. This time, we know what people did. We know when they did it, where they did it, how they did it. I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, regardless of how they vote, and we'll live with the outcome.
As you look, there was a successful Republican candidate in Virginia for the governor's race. That candidate ran sort of skirting President Trump. They didn't bring President Trump in. You seem to be taking the other tack. You seem to be running toward President Trump. You played one of his videos today before your campaign event. Have you got advisors telling you you need to build some distance between you and President Trump, or is that not possible now because you were one of the first?
You know, that's the thing about politicians. They have these handlers. Well, I don't have those. I'm a business guy. The reason I don't like debates is I never had debates in the business where I was the CEO. And we made decisions and got people mobilized and moved, and we got things done. In politics, it's a little different game. No, I'm not worried about that. I mean, I know the other side really is, because you can see their desperate attempts to bring my unfavorables up and the negative attacks. What we're doing is taking the message to the people, and that's all I know to do, Chuck.
You know, if you look, you and Governor Kemp obviously have had a personal and professional relationship over the years. Does that make this more difficult for you, the fact that you're throwing punches and you're getting hit by somebody that you used to be on the same team with?
100%. And Jack Kingston and I talk about that a lot. Jack ended up being in the runoff with me in 2014. We fought like cats and dogs, but he was the first one to call me that night and say, look, I see the outcome, I'm all in your camp. And he was the hardest worker for us against Michelle Nunn in the Nunn machine back in 2014. That's what, you know, I'm hoping will happen in this case. Of course it makes it more difficult. I like Brian, I like his family. They see this as a betrayal, I'm sure, but the betrayal that happened here, truly, is what the governor did in his lack of leadership and allowing Stacey Abrams to take over the elections and then not do anything about it. Going forward, there's so many things we need to take care of. I want to get rid of the state income tax. I want to get this law enforcement division for voting laws, and I want to put education back in the hands of parents.
How do you get rid of the income tax? That seems like the way the income tax and how much revenue it generates for the state general fund, that seems like a great thing to say, but a really difficult thing to do.
Of course it's difficult. And I've had people tell me all my life when I said, look, we're coming into these turnaround situations, competing with Nike and Walmart. Of course it's going to be difficult. They wouldn't be as big as they are if it was going to be easy. It's difficult, but it's doable. 9 states don't have state income tax. And guess who's out competing us right now from an economic growth point of view? Those 9 states for the most part. Tennessee, Florida, Texas, all don't have, none of those have a state income tax. As a matter of fact, Chuck, a couple weeks ago, the House in Mississippi just voted to get rid of their state income tax.
Would you replace it with sales tax? Is that
with what?
Would you replace the revenue with
well,
sales tax?
Well, what you do is there are several steps that you have to do. I've got 2 of the Trump White House economists that helped architect this economic boom that we have had and enjoyed prior to COVID. I'm working with them right now, and what you do is you have to rationalize all the tax credits and all the deductions, everything else on the sales tax first, okay? Because we have a myriad of things that affect that. So you get that in place first. You can actually lower the rate. Right now we have a $1.6 billion, $4 billion surplus, and the governor wants to use 1.6 of it as a one-time election year giveaway. I'm saying, okay, if you're willing to do that, let's make a permanent cut. That's a three-quarter of a percentage point rate there. Throwing a couple of these other tax credits on the state income tax, you've already taken it down 1 full point. State income tax only provides $13 billion of the $30 billion of revenue we get right now. Of course it can be done. We have a plan, and we will implement that with the state legislature. It won't happen overnight. It'll be a phased approach, and I just don't see any reason we can't do it.
Have you got any economists advising you on this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're talking to economics?
Oh no, these are the best. These are the Art Laffer in Nashville, Tennessee. Stephen Moore are 2 to speak of. Larry Kudlow talked about it on his show the other day. These are White House economists that helped us architect this economic strategy and agenda that Donald Trump and we in the Senate implemented back in 17 and 18 that caused the greatest economic turnaround in U.S. history. So I'm definitely getting their counsel. They absolutely believe it's doable. And I just know that it can happen. You can reduce rates and actually increase revenue. That's the other thing that people don't understand, which we proved with the tax cuts of 2017.
Have you talked to former President Trump lately? And if so, kind of what message is he giving you? And I know that he has endorsed former State Representative Vernon Jones. Is that
No,
Vernon Jordan.
Burt Jones. Burt Jones.
No, that was running in your race. I'm sorry.
No, he's not endorsed anybody in my race but me.
Okay. No. When he got out, he endorsed him in a congressional race.
Oh, I'm sorry. When Vernon Jones got out of this race, President Trump endorsed Vernon Jones in the 10th district, I believe.
Yes. So, I mean, does Vernon Jones out of your race make things easier for you?
Well, certainly. A lot of those voters are our voters. Vernon Jones and I were saying the same thing about the elections, about President Trump. Vernon Jones is a patriot. He and I are very much aligned on the principles of what happened and what we need to do about it. I'm proud to have his endorsement as well. And I'm really delighted that now we can unify our message in this race. So from that standpoint, it makes things more direct. And that's what we hope to do in the few months that we have before the election. Remember, April 5th, people can start applying for their absentee ballot.
May 2nd.
And May 2nd is early voting.
Yep, and 24th. I mean, it's gonna be here fast.
Yes, sir.
Will you continue? I mean, obviously, people are saying this is going to be a very expensive campaign to run. Right now, you're not doing a lot of TV. Will you do TV down the road? A lot of that down the road, or you can continue to do these kind of grassroots Republican events like what you did here today?
You're going to see us do what we did in 14, and that's doing what we're doing today and last week and all these 2 months. We're taking our message to the people. You may not see a lot of TV, but you're going to see a lot of us in every other venue out there. And the old adage of throwing a lot of TV up is kind of passé now. It's much more effective to do some of these things we're doing. But the other thing is, our message is real simple. I'm not telling people how bad Governor Kemp is. I'm just giving them an option right now and explaining the facts. Like most people don't know that court case, the judge actually ruled that there was compelling evidence, and he ruled to unseal those absentee ballots. They don't know that. They also don't know that only 9 absentee ballots were rejected because of a bad signature in DeKalb County, as an example. So these are the things that we're doing, and the best way to do that is face-to-face.
Well, you've been very generous with your time. I appreciate it. Last question I'm going to ask you is kind of a philosophical one, but when you got in the car this morning, you drove from Brunswick to Columbus this morning. You rode from Brunswick to Columbus, I would guess. But as you're in that car and you're thinking about this, has there been a point where you're questioning what you not commitment to, and that's the wrong word, but you're questioning why'd I do it? Is there any point where you're just saying, I don't have to be in this car, I don't have to be doing this?
Chuck, yeah, that's a probing question. Not a minute. And now, before I got in here, I debated that for 6 months because I saw the train wreck coming, because I couldn't get the governor to move on the things that he needed to move on. In May of last year, the governor saw this harvesting evidence. I saw it then too. It was compelling. The GBI looked at it, said it was compelling, and yet we had no investigation. So for that 6 months, I went back and forth. I don't want to run against an incumbent governor, a friend, but at the end of the day, I owed more allegiance to the people of Georgia than I did to a single friend.
Well, Senator, thank you, sir. Our guest has been Senator David Perdue, candidate for governor of Georgia. That's not something I thought I would have been saying.
Me either, Chuck. But we're here, and we're going to win it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Chuck,
your time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Be safe.